Good evening, and welcome to our continuing series, Explorations in Savitri, with our beloved Alabai. We continue in Book 3, the Book of the Divine Mother, page 320 after the break. Canto 3 is the house of the Spirit and the new creation. As one who sets his sail towards mysteried shores, driven through huge oceans by the breath of God, the fathomless below, the unknown around, his soul abandoned the blind star-filled space. Afar from all that makes the measured world, plunging to hidden eternities, it withdrew back from mind's foaming surface to the vasts voiceless within us in omniscient sleep. Above the imperfect reach of word and thought, beyond the sight that seeks support of form, lost in deep tracts of superconscient light, or voyaging in blank, featureless nothingness, soul in the trackless, incommensurable, or past not self and selflessness, transgressing the dream shores of conscious mind, he reached at last his sempiternal base.
So we see Ashapati standing on the gates of infinity and eternity, and he is now slowly withdrawing into that. He had a glimpse of the Divine Mother who comes to him on the shores of infinity, and he has a wonderful vision, darshan of the Divine Mother, which we read in the previous canto. Anybody else would have been more than happy. Is a understatement. Would have been felt fulfilled with this darshan. But Ashapati has come there with a mission. He has come there with our agenda, not his agenda. He has no personal agenda, so to say, because his soul is already freed. We have seen that in book 1 itself. He is a free being. He doesn't need to do anything or have anything else. Sri Aurobindo says in one of his letters that I am seeking the supermind not for myself but for earth nature. Personally, I have no need of anything, whether it's supermind or Sachidananda, because he's already has all that. He is the Sachidananda who has taken a human form.
Yes.
So he is waiting, and as he waits, we see something happening here, and that's what we are reading. As one who sets his sail towards mysteried shores, driven through huge oceans by the breath of God. So this he is entering into a domain which is driven entirely by the force of the divine, the breath of God. Now here also it is the divine force, but veiled by all the paraphernalia, by mind, life and body. There it's directly the breath of God, the supreme Shakti, who is driving him through mysteried shores. The fathomless below, the unknown around, his soul abandoned the blind star-filled space. So the inconscient has been left behind, the fathomless, and the unknown around, the cosmic consciousness, and he is entering into the, going beyond even the star-filled space. Stars, interestingly, define space in a certain sense. So he is abandoning all that can be measured and all that can be limited to time. So he is going beyond space and time. Afar from all that makes the measured world. So this all that makes the measured world is not just the forms, but the forces that support the form. So all of that he is leaving behind into the frontiers of the formless. Plunging to hidden eternities, it withdrew. So while eternal is one, but eternities, each aspect of him is eternal in its own right. So Sri Aurobindo speaks of that as 4 eternities. And in the Indian tradition you name them Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva and Krishna. So each is an aspect of the divine and yet it is eternal. He is eternal in his own right. So when it is said Shiva is eternal, it's perfectly true. When it is said Vishnu is eternal, it's equally true. So how can there be two eternals? There has to be one eternal. Yes, but Shiva represents an aspect of the eternal. And Vishnu another aspect of the eternal. Krishna the Anandamaya aspect of the eternal. Brahma the creatrix of the eternal. So that is how each of them is an eternity. So he is climbing toward that. Of course, there they are no more like our traditional understanding of Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesh. Back from mind's foaming surface to the vast. See, this is a wonderful image Sri Aurobindo uses sometimes. This foaming, all the froth and foam of the mind. Look at the expression. Sea on the surface, near the shore is foaming. You think it is everything. But you may catch that foam, you may play with it. But the real thing is far deep. So look at this expression. Back from mind's foaming surface to the vast, voiceless within us in omniscient sleep. This is the Sushupti, where we are not awake in that state. Of course, Mother and Sri Aurobindo remained awake in that state. That is a different story. Above the imperfect reach of word and thought, beyond the sight that seeks support of form, lost in deep tracts of superconscient light. Imperfect reach of word and thought. One can conceive of somebody praying. Supposing at the end he would have said, Lord, I am praying for so long. Why don't you answer? The Lord would say, you stop praying, then I will. He is beyond the reach of word and thought. When the mind falls silent, Mother speaks of this, that you aspire, this is one state. And then you receive, it's another state. Sometimes it's not at the same time. So we may sit and aspire at a particular point of time and we walk away. At another point of time, quite unexpectedly, suddenly things come. Because now we are in a receptive state. And then she says, ideal is to be both at the same time. She gives the image of the lamp and the light within it. So that is the ideal state. But usually, because when we aspire, there is a strain. Then a time comes when all becomes quiet. Word, not thought. You realize that you cannot reach that glory of glories by that. All support of form. Whatever form one may choose, pick and choose. A time comes when you pass beyond the form. There is a story of Sri Ramakrishna and it always used to, it's very instructive and it had hit me a little with a touch of pain because Sri Ramakrishna in his states of meditation, at the end his guru tells him, what do you see? He is seeing the form of Kali and he says you have to cut and pass. This is impossible. How can you do that? And when I read it, I said, how can you do it? But it's not cutting in that sense. You have to pass beyond the form to the truth and the formless that it represents. Then you will enter into Kali's utter truth. Who she is, what she represents. As long as we are tied to form, even the highest form, you have to pass beyond it. Lost in deep tracts of superconscient light, or voyaging in blank, featureless nothingness, soul in the trackless, incommensurable. So he is voyaging through, because there is no form, there is no feature, he is in the whole domain of infinity where there is nothing but superconscient light. But there are worlds hidden there. There are eternities hidden there. There are even beings, forces, powers of a very different order. What is described as the eternal manifestation. There is the dance of Krishna with Vrindavan going on there. But in the beginning, it's like you have entered a domain with too much of light. So there are no features, nothing which he can experience there. Soul in the trackless, incommensurable. Where are the tracts in light? Or past, not self, and selflessness. All the ways by which we try to define the incommensurable. He is the self. He is not self. Neti. Utter state of selflessness. You think you have annulled the ego, but there is that little trace left. He's gone past all that.
And he uses the word soul.
Soul.
He's alone.
He's alone, yes. Transgressing the dream shores of conscious mind, he reached at last his sempiternal base. This our home. Homecoming. What a home. Splendor of light.
I will read a few more lines.
Yes,
and
please.
then we have a 22-line sentence.
Yes.
22 lines. On sorrowless heights, no winging cry disturbs. Pure and untouched above this mortal play is spread the spirit's hushed, immobile air. There no beginning is, and there no end. There is the stable force of all that moves. There the aeonic laborer is at rest.
So this is the beautiful space, beyond space and time, where Ashapati has entered. It's a height where no sorrow can come. It's described in some of the Upanishads as a place where grief cannot touch. On sorrowless heights, no winging cry disturbs, pure and untouched above this mortal play. So that is why I always feel, I don't know, I find it very strange and paradoxical, though people put it in a slightly different way. If given a choice to worship the formless Supreme and the Avatar, I have this feeling that Avatar is greater. The reason is very simple, very practical, that he understands what we go through. Someone who is above and beyond all our grief and, okay, he will respond, but you want someone who has felt this throb of human heart. So some people put it like that, they want a divine who has been like a human. Of course, they go to an extreme that human follies, and it's not about that. It's that he has felt the touch of humanness, and that's what we see in Satyavan also, when Savitri and Satyavan meet. And as Satyavan sees Savitri coming in her chariot, and suddenly he is besieged by the vision that here is a golden goddess, she cannot be a human being. At first, that is his impression. So he tells her that if our time-vexed affections thou canst feel,
Yes.
if you are ready to take of this water by the streams. So look at this. If you can feel our time-vexed affections, then you come. He has no need of a goddess who will come and without any feeling give him something and vanish. He said, can you feel what we undergo and what we can offer? If we are ready, then she says, descend, let thy journey cease. This is where, I find this always, because he's entered that domain where there is no grief, there is no care. Pure and untouched above this mortal play is spread the spirit's hushed, immobile air. There no beginning is, and there no end. There is the stable force of all that moves. There the aeonic laborer is at rest. God's on a holiday. Perhaps that's what is meant by, after 6 days of creation, 7th day he took rest. See, look at the symbolic sense, so very profound. So 6 days he created. So there has to be a state of consciousness, a poise, where the eternal laborer is at rest. And we are, look at the Sunday church. If you go into the symbol, so that is the day is given to God, Though it has become only a Sunday church where you go in like all rituals. But the idea is so good. 6 days you are engaged with all this, all the play of life and mind and debate. There is a day when you should strive to enter into that poise, which is beyond our earthly cares and grief, beyond where the aeonic laborer is at rest. It's the sheer transcendent, but yet from where all force, all things happen, the worlds emerge.
And,
Imagine.
and find the peace that passeth all understanding.
Now see, if you go there and say it's my birthday, please, see, beyond beginning and end. So when the divine comes and becomes human, so I have never understood people who, I don't know why they are so much not in favor of, avatarhood or human. This is something so beautiful. And Sri Aurobindo's yoga, this is a central point. If you read through Sri Aurobindo's yoga, you cannot conceive it without bringing in the idea of avatarhood. It's impossible to conceive this yoga. And there you can go to Divine Mother who, coming from there, Mother, it's my birthday. Oh, yes, my child, keeping. You can go twice, thrice on birthday. But where is she coming from? There where no beginning is, no end. So that is the other side. There turns no keyed creation in the void, no giant mechanism washed by a soul. There creaks no fate-turned huge machinery. So this creation is more like a machine, where there are keys, processes. There it's an act of will. That's why it is a self-creation. Later on it will be described, supramental creation is self-creation without end or pause. And at another place also Sri Aurobindo describes, Mother describes that what is the supramental creation. She says, here if you look at this world, it is so full of artificiality. You want to buy something, if you have money, if you are born because of fortunate circumstances, and then you go and pick it up. Artificial means, if you have to travel, you need a vehicle. But in the supramental world, it will be an act of will. You don't have to buy dress. You have this inner will which is moved by something still greater, and the whole body takes on an appearance which weaves something around you, like a radiant tissue, which is like a dress and can change color. Just imagine. She says if you have to travel somewhere, you don't need a vehicle. You just travel because you are in another, your body can enter into other domains, physical travel. So, but here you have to use a machinery. So that's why he's saying no keyed creation turns in the void. Creaking, all this because it's a machinery. So it can go faulty, it has its own flaws, it has its own issues.
He also says, in this investiture
of
earthly form.
A spirit that is a flame of God abides, a fiery portion of the wonderful.
Yes.
There creaks no fate-turned huge machinery, the marriage of evil with good within one breast. Fate-turned. Here we are subject to fate, to determinisms, and often it takes the form of blind determinism. It is not blind because there is a wisdom behind, but we are as if helplessly caught within a machine. After Sri Krishna says that yantra rudini maya, as a fly caught in the wheels, it is thinking it is going by its own effort. But onlooker will say you are not going, the wheel is moving and you are just sitting on the wheel. You don't even know where you are going. So that is the situation. But there it is beyond. The marriage of evil with good within one breast. The clash of strife in the very clasp of love. The dangerous pain of life's experiment in the values of inconsequence and chance. This whole passage will end up by saying these things are not there. So we must be, there is a similar very long passage in book 1 where Sri Aurobindo describes the soul's release from ignorance. The time's regurgitation, the regurgitation of time's floods, the estrus that creates with pain, like that it goes. It's another maybe 15 lines. At the end of all that passage, he says, seized in a self that sees in its own light. So, he's describing what this creation is and its manifold aspects. And all of them will be hushed there. So, let's see this. What we experience here, the marriage of evil with good within one breast. Of course, we always feel my breast is good, other breast is evil. But here, this is the truth. The clash of strife in the very clasp of love. There is love. but it has assumed the aspect of so much sorrow, suffering, wrestle, fight, hate. But if you ask behind, there is love. In fact, hatred is a sign of love. Sri Aurobindo says that.
Yes, he does.
Otherwise, you are indifferent. If you hate, means you are love behind. So look at the perfection of the words. The clash of strife in the very clasp of love. The dangerous pain of life's experiment in the values of inconsequence and chance. If you look at things in this play of ignorance, why this happened? People try to explain in countless ways, but it may look like a absolutely inconsequential thing. Of course, there is a lot of sense to that, but that's a different story. The peril of mind's gamble, throwing our lives as stake in a wager of indifferent gods. They are playing Chaucer, that Chaucer in Hindi, sorry, Ludo or chess. We are like pawns. They are playing the stakes at stake. Okay, this man, he is my fellow. Other god says my fellow. So he says, okay, if he is your fellow, I am going to test and try. So there is a story of Goddess Saraswati and Goddess Lakshmi. Who is greater? So they make a man, as a pawn. So this man, now he says, okay, you try first. So Goddess Saraswati gives all the wisdom, learning, and Goddess Lakshmi takes away all the wealth. It's a very childish story and not the true Lakshmi and true Saraswati. To see that what he can survive, sustain with. Now with wisdom, story tilting in favor of wisdom, that you can build everything again. But if you have all the wealth and you don't have the wisdom, you will end up losing it. So, the story moves like that. But look at the clash where that poor fellow becomes an experimental model. So he goes through a lot of suffering because all his wealth is taken away. Why? Because it's a wager of indifferent gods. To the gods, it's just a little fun. And the shifting lights and shadows of the idea falling upon the surface consciousness. And depending upon which angle of vision falls upon us, we say, I am thinking like this. But it's not we who are thinking. It is shifting. And as it shifts through the galleries of fate, we see something. And in the dream of a mute witness soul, creating the error of a half-seen world. Because there is a constantly shifting image. Keikumono, that's how Sri Aurobindo at one place describes.
Yes.
You have those, a single lamp with many angles. And each angle has a colored paper, it rotates. If you go on to that Duma street, you will see sometimes those lights and they are rotating. So they are changing colors. So as you walk through, you'll see changing colors like small little marbles. So like that. So it's all the time changing colors. And you don't know what is really true there. And the shifting lights and shadows of the idea falling upon the surface consciousness and in the dream of a mute witness soul, creating the error of a half-seen world. Our consciousness is fixed to one and then it shifts. So we can't conceive the whole. We don't know what is the truth behind. And that is what is ignorance. Where knowledge is a seeking ignorance. So even what we call as knowledge, once we understand this, we are half through. All our knowledge is nothing.
Another says, the more you think you know, the more you do not know.
Yes. I used to joke around earlier, sometimes now also. When somebody says, oh, you know so much. I said, are you digging a pit somewhere? Somewhere. How deep is the pit? 3 feet, 6 feet? You want me to fall there? Who knows? There is only one knower. Who acts? There is only one doer. You can, or anybody can. The whole creation is his vessel and instrument. It doesn't matter. So that is how knowledge is a seeking ignorance. Life's steps a stumbling series without suit. Its aspect of fortuitous design. Its equal measure of the true and false. So this is how life moves. Stumbling and fumbling. And Sri Aurobindo would tell us, yet each stumble is a needed pace. It's going like that. All stumble behind a stumbling guide, yet each its stumble was a needed pace. So it's going like that. And we are being led somewhere we don't know. It looks like as if there is no issue in this. In that immobile and immutable realm, find no excess, no cause, no right to live. Here also it's not stopped, only there is a colon. In that realm, all these things have no right to live. Why? Because you have completed a curve. It's all that you have gone through that graduation, post-graduation. So if you are asked that, which exam are you taking? Oh, I have gone through that. Once Nirodha asked Sri Aurobindo, he complained of some difficulty. He says, well, you have to go through it. It's, because you have to grow in equality. And then he says, I had my own turn, completed MA, now your please. I have gone through my... After you have gained equanimity, it doesn't matter. Because you have gone through that. You can be in that state, and then that's why it's so difficult to understand. Yogis can be in anything, any state, because they are free. But before that, you have to go through that whole practice, the process and the whole thing. You can ill afford to, let your vigilance drop. So here is, they have no right there because that process is over. The schooling in ignorance. There only reigns the spirit's motionless power, poised in itself through still eternity, and its omniscient and omnipotent peace.
Omnipotent sense.
Yes. Oh, one of the aphorism that Sri Aurobindo gives, that the tiger does not attack the yogi. Sri Raman Maharshi, omnipotent peace. He's sitting there. He was not giving any discourses, but it is said that in the hill of Arunachala, people who, even the wild animals, they lost their ferocity. We see here also something like that. Of course, neither there nor here human beings take time to lose their ferocity. That's why it's about animals. It is not said of human beings.
The lion shall lay down with the lamb.
Yes, that's it. Because of that omnipotent peace. But in man, something, a dim, disturbing, somewhat lives.
Yes.
But animals respond so nicely, beautifully. So he's describing that place. It continues. There only reigns the spirit's motionless power, poised in itself through still eternity, and its omniscient and omnipotent peace. It also reminds me, there was a movie, I don't know whether you may have seen, the 36th Chamber of Shaolin. It's a very interesting movie because this man is moved by, he knows there is a great power, tremendous power, by which I can defeat these people who are actually evildoers. So he wants to learn that. It's ultimately a highest form of martial arts. So he goes there, he is told that some monks teach it. So he goes to the monks and at ground level he says, well, I want to learn there. Most of them ignore him. He also knows a little bit of fighting. They say, I want to learn. He says, with great difficulty, okay, you can be enrolled in school 1, level 1. So in level 1 he is given a very drudgery kind of work. You have to just pick up, throw while others are going through. And he gets very bored. So he says, how long I have to learn this? He says, you have to go 36 chambers. 36 chambers? I am on first chamber still. Yeah, it will take time. He says, why don't you help me? Then second, third chamber, he becomes very impatient. So he somehow sneaks into the 36 chamber. So it's very interesting. In that 36 chamber, there is a monk, old monk sitting there. He just reading a text and all others they are just chanting mantras, all quiet. He suddenly goes there awkward, doesn't know what he has to learn there. Nobody to teach anything. So he's just waiting. He's impatient that tell me that highest secret, and they are just chanting. After some time, this man opens his eyes. So he says, I want to learn. And he just looks at him and just, with the, like that, he makes a gesture. He suddenly falls far away, flung back to the first chamber. And he says, that kind of power, you do nothing and you are down. He has to not even touch or do anything. He says, yes, you can't get it unless you go through this process of preparation. Omnipotent peace. A peace that is unmoved. And there's so many, Sri Aurobindo himself. I will not budge an inch from here when he is asked to go to Algeria.
Yes.
So much people tried, the British government colluding with the French people, but nothing they could do. Try, let them come. We have another story like that of, people who have realized this. That's how we can understand a glimpse of what this omnipotent peace is. About Hazrat Nizamuddin, a Sufi mystic. So, the Mughal kings, they were actually against all these people who claimed that they can realize God. Because, you can't by its nature. So he sends two of his generals to capture him. So all his disciples say, Hazrat, they are very close by. So he smiles and says, Dilli knows us. This is a very famous phrase many people know. Dilli dur hai. Heard about? That's how it comes. Delhi is far. So then again he says, oh, they are very close. They are on the banks of Yamuna. He smiles and says, Dilli knows us. Dilli is far. They say, they are at the door. He says, usher them in. When they come, they just don't know what to do. They become his disciples and go back. So it's the story of those beings who have risen to a height. Chaitanya, Jagan and Madhai. Of course, Sri Aurobindo is a host of such people who came. Famous was that, Moni, someone who had flipped over to the other side. Not Moni, Bijoy son. He had flipped over. He had become a spy. So, so he was actually spying. Sri Aurobindo unmoved, untouched in his own. So he was asked to plant some incriminating evidence, which he had done, put inside the well, and then, they took out, and then, the story, French commissioner came and said, oh, somebody who can talk such Greek, French, Latin fluently, he cannot be doing all this. And this man one day had shaved off his head to, people should know who is the spy. Those, he has to pass message. That day it so happened that Moni also shaved his head. Now when he went, he thought, oh, they know my plan. He fell down at Sri Aurobindo's feet. I am sorry, I am that fellow who has been spying all along. Because looking at another person who had shaved his head, he thought, now they know the plan and they are trying to fool me. Look at Sri Aurobindo, just a smile. That is the omnipotent peace that, we are reading here. Those who embody it. Thought clashes not with thought and truth with truth. There is no war of right with rival right. All our opinions, viewpoints, discover their synthesis there. Thought clashes not with thought and truth with truth. That famous story of Buddha, somebody goes and says, Sir, I am so happy. I believe that you have been saying God does not exist. I also, I don't believe that God exists. Is it not so? So Buddha says, you are right. Goes. Another person comes and says, I heard that you have been saying that there is God and I am so happy. I also believe there is God. Isn't it true? So Buddha says, you are right. So a disciple who is watching this, he says, Sir, what are you saying? You are saying he is also right. He is also right. What does it mean? So Buddha says, you are also right. Because we see things from an angle of vision. So there is war. Democracy versus dictatorship. Divine is both. Look at the example. On one side is a benevolent dictator. Ultimately things will happen according to his will. But he is also a democrat, gives you the freedom to choose. Look at it. He is at once a capitalist and a communist. He will reward effort and all that. You put more effort and you get, and there is wealth and splendor and everything. At the same time, he distributes as a yagna. Everything, even the lowest of creatures, is looked after in its own way. He doesn't deprive anyone, abandon anyone. So you see, in the divine, they're all reconciled. Here they will fight. At one place, speaking of Russia and America, the mother says, actually, you know what? They are fighting unnecessarily. She says, Both represent a side of the truth. And all their fight is unnecessary. It's all on the surface. The day they discover it, they will come together and be a common force for the new world, with India as a link. And anyways, it was on the verge of happening. Now again there is some confusion. All this is
It
a
was
passage.
the same with Palestine and Israel.
Yeah.
And
She
my
said they are
friend-
brothers.
Yep, my friend wrote her, and that's what she said. They are
They're brothers.
Perhaps
That's
because
why.
they're brothers.
Yes. The Arabs and Israelis, they're brothers. That's why they're fighting. Same actually when you see Pakistan and India, you see the TV channel and one person is saying our forces will decimate. You say, oh, don't underestimate us. I feel that two persons in Amritsar sitting in a drawing room are discussing. Same language, same passion, same ethos.
Yes.
What are you fighting for? After that, they will surely have biryani together. That's how, it is, it ceases there if in that truth. Passing from, there are no stumbling and half-seeing lives. Passing from chance to unexpected chance. No suffering of hearts compelled to beat in bodies of the inert inconscients make. What a lovely line, marvelous. Compelled to beat. It's incessantly, the force of life is going on. Even when you may be suffering, actually suffering, but body of inert inconscient, it holds its iron grip. Unless it says switch off, you can't even say that switch off. So when people say, sometimes, you meet people, oh, I want to, die. I say, what is the point of saying all this? It's not going to happen just because you want to die or not die in your surface consciousness. Might as well use this time to, as much as possible connect with her. It's not going to happen just because you want to die. This will keep on beating. There's a purpose behind all that.
Maybe I could tell once again the story of Amal.
Yeah, this is it. This is where it actually stops. This whole passage.
Amal started shouting in the nursing home, I want to die. I want to die. And the doctor came and he said, you're a disciple of Mother and Sri Aurobindo and you want to die? He said, I want to dye my hair.
This is true. True story. There are many interesting stories of his kind. He used to coin new words also. Somebody told him, oh, I am so sorry to see you are handicapped, because he met with a fracture. He says, not handicapped, I am leggy capped. My hands are quite all right. You see, this sense of humor, even in that age, when can you preserve? When you have touch of that, eternity. Then you laugh at all these things which we thought are so important. Few more lines and then we can stop maybe. Armed with the immune, occult, unsinking fire, the guardians of eternity keep its law, forever fixed upon truth's giant base, in her magnificent and termless home. That's where the guardians of truth, we read in the Vedas and we read later on, and they are not bothered about all this fight and suffering, and you pray with them, oh, see, so and so has done so much harm to me, why don't you hurt and do something? For all you know, that man will prosper even more. They are not going to act just because we foolishly, they will act based on their truth sight and do what is needed. That's why the lesson of lessons, when we are face to face with one who is in touch with eternity, everything should be taken as a grace. There is a story of somebody who had a fight with, two people had a fight, let's put it like that, in the ashram, and the matter went up to the mother, and the mother took a decision, asked X to go. He said, but it's not my fault. So he wanted to explain to mother. So he went to Nolnida and said, it's not my fault, all this. Nolnida told him, don't think of all that fault, right, wrong. If the mother has said, take it as a grace. He understood. He went away. After 10 years, he says, I now know what a wonderful grace it was. Don't understand that time, because how can it be? She has not even heard me properly, but she has seen something far beyond that we cannot even fathom. That's why surrender, obedience to the master, they are indispensable if one wants to walk the path. If we stick to our ideas of right and wrong, good and bad, we cannot. The guardians of truth, they don't act according to that. When you look at all our scriptures, our stories, Mahabharata, Ramayana, we'll discover it. But according to another law, which is the divine law, which we don't know, Satya Dharma. So we'll stop here and continue tomorrow.
Yes,
Yes.
tomorrow.